facilities that make this program possible are provided by the City of Highland Park. Programs are produced independently by members of the community. The City of Highland Park is not affiliated with the following program or the producers of public access programming and is not responsible for the content. The following program does not reflect the opinions of the City of Highland Park.
Hello, and welcome to Cahnmanns Current Events Roundtable. We are welcoming back one of my favorite guests, Aaron Freeman, and I want to tell you a little bit about Aaron. Aaron is, he's a writer, producer, science commentator, and funny man, right? And he's former host of both NPR's weekly talk show Metropolis and WTTW Chicago, and it's WTTW Chicago Tomorrow
with Elizabeth Brackett.
And it's a weekly science and health half-hour magazine co-host and of Chicago Brain Buddies. You have so much here that I have to figure out what you are.
I'm so old.
I mean, oh my
so
goodness.
old.
Every time I see Aaron, he has another title beyond his name. So Aaron, your new thing is, how does science make us happier? How studying neuroscience has a special role in making us happier?
Yes.
And how does it affect all of us?
Yes.
That's a really long title. I never figured out how science and being a comedian and science and how that works together. You're going to have to tell our viewers what this is all about. This is a new thing that you've been doing for how long now?
Well, I've been working with as the artist in residence for the Chicago Council on Science and Technology since 2015. But you know, the science and comedy are not our old pals. Some of the best scientists around have been some of the funniest. Richard Feynman, the great physicist, theoretical physicist, was a very funny guy. And there've been a lot of really funny guys. The Murray Gell-Mann, the founder of who discovered quarks, once famously said in the '60s, before quarks had been observed, he said, "Quarks exist."
What are quarks?
Quarks are the fundamental particles, the current best candidate for the fundamental particles of nature, the smallest individual particle into which you can break something down. And Murray Gell-Mann said in the '60s, "Quark exists. The fact that experimentalists have not found them is not my problem."
So it is kind of funny because you never think of science and comedy as one. You know, I would never put the two of them together. And yet, we were talking about earlier when we were at the Bluegrass today.
Thanks for lunch.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And how it kind of goes together. You know, we were talking a lot about politics today, and you were really putting it together in a science way. And how do you think of this? How do you know? When did you? Well, we're going to talk about politics, but before we do, how did you figure out that studying like neuroscience has a special way of making you happier? How did you really put together the science thing and comedy and find a group that surrounds you?
In the French, they say, "Tu comprends et tu pardonnes." To understand all is to forgive all. And the specific role that neuroscience has to play in making you a happier person is that when we think of one another as just a of biological entities, we are apes. We are subject to the same neurochemical, physiological, hormonal drives and vulnerabilities as every other ape that has ever lived. When you think about human beings that way, there are no bad guys. There are no bad apes. They're just apes behaving the way apes do. And that makes it easier to forgive people, and that will make you happier.
Well, then you should go on as another political group, because then people realize that we're apes, and the reason we're all angry at each other there's no reason to be, because do apes get angry?
Yeah, as you famously talk about the bonobos, they get angry all the time, and they settle it by having sex.
Wow.
That's how they settle there.
I knew that Aaron's going to be a really good guest today.
You brought up the bonobos at lunch. I'm just saying that.
Right.
So apes absolutely get angry. Some apes get angry, deal with it by fighting and biting and smashing. Other apes make love, not war.
Then why? Then we talked about today, and if you use you list yourself as the excitable ape.
On Twitter, Excitable Ape. That's right, Excitable Ape, and on Facebook, Excitable Ape.
Okay.
Yes.
Then when Rosie, that was Roseanne, not Rosie, but Roseanne
Yes.
Barr called Valerie Jarrett, she was calling her, I don't know if it was an ape, a monkey, or what she was saying.
She said Muslim Brotherhood plus Planet of the Apes equals VJ.
Okay, right. Okay. So why did everybody get so alarmed and so upset, and she got fired? If we're all apes, we're calling an ape an ape. As far as you're concerned, that's who we are.
Well, the great primatologist Robert Sapolsky, did work with baboons in Kenya, and the Kenyans were deeply offended at the notion when he would say that this baboon is my cousin. I got to take care of this, my cousin. And he said, that's not your cousin, that is an ape, it's a baboon. So some people are sensitive to the notion that human beings are apes. They don't like the idea. They like to think of us as higher than the apes, a little less than the angels. Others of us are very comfortable and embrace our ape nature as a way to not be mad at the other apes. But it's almost like, I think people are different. It's the kind of thing. Some people have different opinions and react differently to things.
Yeah, because, here was it ABC that fired her, and she really just didn't, she was just, maybe she was trying to be funny, or she was half asleep. She was on Ambien. She says she's in her family. She has African American cousins and family members that are married to African American men and women. And she felt that it wasn't,
But you make the point. It doesn't matter. I mean, so I talked about this on my YouTube channel, Science Today. And as a Chicagoan, I think about it. You think about any issue. How do you science it? How can you apply reason to it? How can you ask questions that'll help you better understand the phenomenon? Roseanne Barr, if you think about it as a Chicagoan, I think about economically, the science of economics. We at the University of Chicago, we are very proud of how many Nobel Prizes in economics that the University of Chicago has won. And in terms of, this was an example, in my view, of Roseanne Barr's example of Adam Smith's invisible hand. She made a statement, and the market spoke. The executives, the people in charge of making money at ABC, looked at the market, particularly the crucial 18 to 35 demographic, and saw that they are wildly intolerant of racially charged or racially insensitive comments. And simply as a matter of capitalism, they said, well, this is a crucial demographic. They don't like it. She's gone.
But why is it seen as racially unacceptable?
Many people don't like referring to Negroes as apes.
But but according to science, white people are apes as well.
I understand. I'm just telling you that you asked the question. And I'm not one of those people.
Maybe you stayed in the sun. Your group stayed in the sun longer. That's why your skin changed. We stayed in the shade. But if we're all apes, we're all apes.
It's true. I'm not one of those people who objects to. I proudly embrace my primate reality.
So why do we look different than the apes? What happened? How did that come about?
Beats me.
We all look different. Do you think we just evolved a little bit differently? We were all the same. We had the fur all over and.
Well, we still have the fur all over. Ours is not as thick, except on the top as some of the other apes.
So you know, if you would have gotten on that show, or you would have talked to somebody there in ABC and really talked about your opinion and how science we are one of the same, you know, maybe Roseanne would not have lost the
Oh,
show.
no, absolutely. She should definitely have lost the show. Unequivocally, again, just as a matter of pure economic sciences, there's a crucial demographic of people 18 to 35 who are wildly intolerant of anything that smacks of racial stereotyping.
You would
They
think
are
that people that you would think that people that age has more tolerance than the people of my age group.
They're not. They're a lot less tolerant of racism, like even the whiff of it. Like, whereas I'm much more tolerant of racism than my daughter. You know, because I'm old. You know, I've had to deal with it for a long time. I
Yeah.
don't get upset, as my old buddies say. I don't argue about whose white people are better. You know, I'm old. It doesn't bother me. But my daughter's generation they're much less tolerant. They expect the stuff that we fought for as old people. That's where they start. They start there, and they want to make the world better from there. They want to make the world less racist from there. So
Do you think that works? Do you think they're working? Is
In-
it causing
in the-
more division?
in the
or
time of in my lifetime, the world has become far less racist, far more
Yeah.
kind and tolerant. So apparently
right,
it does work.
Right.
It didn't get less racist because people were kind of going, hey, got racist,
Yeah.
less racist because people got into the streets, demanded, screamed, yelled, and like people do for science. People advocate for science. They advocate against the policies of certain policies that seem to deny science. And that's part of what the Chicago Council on Science and Technology tries to do, is to promote a more science literate, a more science, and a part of that is to remind people that science can make you happier. In addition to giving you an excuse, empirically based excuses to forgive people, science also gives you an entree into the awe of everyday life. For example,
Yeah, give me
right
example.
here, this table. We got two
Okay.
tables right here. We got the table of nature and the table of physics. The table of nature is solid, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if the physicists will always tell you, it's not solid, it's a cloud. It's a cloud of atoms. It's only the repulsion of electromagnetic forces that prevents my hand from passing through it. And not only is it a cloud of electrons, but this table, this mug, that paper, you and me, all the equipment in here, everything physical in our world was born at the center of a first-generation star that blew up and spewed its guts out into the world, and those guts later became the heavy elements that are made of which we are all composed. Which, if you think about it, is freaking wonderful and awesome and totally cool.
But how does
And that's how it makes you happier.
so it makes you happier by
Give you a chance to experience awe. Everybody is happier when they experience awe, when they can see things that blow their minds and force them to reconsider their place in the universe and in the world. When you, for example, if you're at a basketball game or a sporting event and you see somebody does an incredible play, and you go, "Did you see that? Did you see what he did there? You see that?" It makes us awe,
Right.
makes us pro-social,
Right.
and there's been a lot of study about that. That when we experience something amazing, we want to share it with somebody.
right, exactly.
When you're in love, you want the whole world to know.
But now we're in a situation now where everybody seems to be so angry, so unhappy. So it just we were talking about even in my own family how if you post something that they don't like, oh my God, you get a handful. I've been getting a handful for my own son. Mom, how could you post such a
Well,
thing?
but again, I think
Why is everybody so angry? Why can't people see that? Hey, even if you don't say, even we go back to our president, if you like him, fine. If you don't like him, in a couple of years you could change. You don't have to be stuck on being so unhappy. Make the best of something, even if it's something that isn't what you want, or something that you're not for, or it's not in agreement with you. You can always find something positive.
Oh yeah, but I mean, the opposition to tyrants is service to the gods. It's great to fight against. I mean, it's great to be a part of the resistance to the Death Star. You saw Star Wars, right?
Yes,
I mean, you want to be a part of the resistance. You don't want to be a part of the Empire. You want to be a part of the resistance. We always identify with the downtrodden fighting against the big evil death, the machine, the Matrix. So that
So you're saying that we're always fighting against the person on the top. We're always for the underdog. Like maybe when you
I mean, we certainly like that. Yeah, we want to be a part. I mean, somebody's saying that
in
is
the
the best
baseball
of it.
too. Remember the
We root
underdog?
the Cubs. I was a Cub fan my whole
Yeah.
life. You want to talk underdogs? I'll talk about underdogs, okay?
Yeah, 100 and how many years?
103, I think it was.
Whatever, it was 100 and some years
Yep.
that they weren't,
Yeah.
and everybody was so excited. I know when I went to different states, people, even though Cubs weren't their team, but to root for the Cubs, they were so happy after 100 and some plus years, they won.
Yeah.
And just this year, the baseball team, I think.
They're not so great this year.
Yeah.
Not as
No, I mean,
dominant.
who won last year?
It wasn't the Cubs.
Wasn't a Cubs, but it was a team that hadn't won in many, many
Yeah,
years.
yep.
So people, you're saying, really like going for the underdog.
Yeah, you mentioned about making the best of the current administration, and the best. It's great to be a part of a historical movement. If you believe that you're part of a historical movement to resist fascism in America, that's a great thing to do. That's the best thing you could possibly do. That's the most patriotic thing you can do, and that's then that is the perspective of the people.
Well, if you think of it as fascism,
I mean, and that is the
everybody-
perspective
yeah.
of many of the people who
Right.
oppose
Right. They
our
think it's
beloved
a-
President Bone Spurs.
what did you say?
President Bone Spurs.
What's that?
We had 5 draft deferments because of bone spurs.
Oh,
So some people call them.
Oh.
Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth calls them actually cadet bone spurs.
oh,
But I'm a comedian, so I like jokes.
yes, I see you too.
Ah!
And we were talking about
Yes.
we were talking about something else that people would.
So-
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, so that that's another thing about comedy. So they say that the greatest scientific discoveries are accompanied not so much as by eureka as by, that's weird. So that they say that man laughs because he's the animal who can tell the difference between the way things are and the way things should be. So they both in that both science and comedy relish in the odd and the unusual and the unexpected.
See, so that's how it goes together. When did this group get together? How did they,
Chicago Council on Science and Technology just had our 10th anniversary gala. Professor Dr. Alan Schriesheim, former director of Argonne National Laboratories, recognized and believed more than a decade ago that there needed to be some way for citizens to be able to interact with the real scientists, and that we are better served by getting our science information from practitioners of science than by, say, comedians. So C2ST does programming that brings real scientists into bars and restaurants and lecture halls and have them talk to regular people.
And so by them talking to, quote unquote, regular people,
Civilians.
what is it that they do? How do they put everything together for themselves? Like, if there is, say, science, how do they see it? Why do they want to be with the regular people? What do they get out of their information? Here, these guys are they're the brightest guys,
And women.
Yeah,
a lot of women.
They
Very
won
smart
Nobel
women.
Peace Prizes. They probably, they probably are really amazing science and lecturers, and
Yep.
these are people that.
And they want to let people know, for example, my partner in the Chicago Brain Buddies that we do for the Chicago Society for Neuroscience, Peggy Mason, she studies rats and pro-social behavior of rats. And long story short, that rats generally hate being in the middle of the room. They hate lights. But you can if you trap a rat in the middle of a room in a little cage, another rat who does not want to be there will go into the middle of the room, into the light, to rescue
Really?
a trapped fellow rat. Yes. And so when Peggy finds this out, that that it gives an indication that helping, pro-sociality, the desire to help another in distress, is a part of not just our fundamental nature, but of fundamental mammalian nature. And you want to let people know that, so that, as the Jews say, lo b'shamayim, it's not in heaven. Kindness is not a thing that's in heaven. It's so fundamental, so basic to life, to mammalian life at the very least, that even rats manifest it.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people put on Facebook a lot of different animals. You know, like say there was a dog that a cat that was, you know, looked like it was sick or was caught, and they'll help the other animal. They won't eat the other animal. They don't try to bite it, but they actually try to help it.
And it helps to remind us that we, as apes, as animals, as members of the biological world, of members in good standing of the biological world, it is within our nature to be kind and helpful toward one another. And as you point out, in times when things can seem like people are not at their best, that it's useful to be reminded that we are, in fact, we remain kind and generous and decent, just like our chimpanzee cousins and our ratty second cousins.
Yeah, I think people have to be, I think I went on Facebook and I showed you an article that I saw and how people should, just because you voted for Trump or just because you voted for Hillary Clinton, we're still people and we still love each other. And just because you don't agree with somebody's politics or you don't agree with somebody's, you know, we should still be kind to each other.
Well, they say that kindness is always in our power, even when fondness is not.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you may not like what they did, but you know, sometimes
you may think they're a hideous human being.
Yeah, or sometimes even our own children, we may not like them at times, but we always love them. You know, you can not like somebody, but yet you can love them too, especially when it comes to our family.
That's true. I'm
know?
with you. I like mine.
Yes. So how does comedy, how could we use comedy more to help people out of this situation that they're in right now, that everybody's going around with a long face and anger?
Do you find that to be the case?
Yes, yes. You know, I do a current event roundtable discussion group. Oh my God, they come in with this, you know, they're ready. It's almost like they're ready. If I had two swords in each of their hands, they would be ready for the kill. I mean, it's really, I mean, I would say the majority of them are like this right now. And I'll go to other groups too, and they're all attacking one another. It's like an attack over attack over attack. I'd like to see maybe some comedy, some science, something to maybe we could do to help these people out so they won't be so angry.
That's not the world I live in. I live in a world filled with kind, decent, honorable people.
Are we in two different worlds?
I believe, say, everybody, if you start talking about the news,
yeah,
which is designed to push your buttons, but once you get past that, that's not what people actually care about. The stuff people actually care about is their own health, their family.
People that are, I know, but people are listening 24/7. There are people that are listening to the news and all the media. I mean, every station being either MSNBC, you know, or CNN or Fox News. Everyone has. I mean, they have opinions, and they have a right to all their opinions.
Science Today on YouTube, Science Today on Facebook. They should go to the Chicago Council on Science and Technology website. Learn about the latest in science and technologies. That'll make you feel better.
Yeah, they need to turn off the other
news. More science,
news.
More happy. More science, more happy.
You think that they're designing the media right now
to push the buttons?
To push the buttons.
No, not now. That's what they do.
But this is more than ever. Why are they doing that, according to your, you know, ideas on
all
the
media
apes
that we have,
all
the media of which we are aware, is designed to sell stuff.
Okay.
That's what it's for. It's to sell stuff, and you sell stuff by getting people's attention, and that's perfectly fine and wonderful. Again, what we do is we try to engage. We believe, and it has a bunch of good evidence of that when people engage their intellects, as opposed to their amygdalae, that they engage their frontal cortices as opposed to the kind of lizard brain, they are less likely to be angry at one another.
So how do they do that?
You watch the Chicago Brain Buddies, and my buddy Peggy and I, we look at the news, and we analyze it from various scientific perspectives.
Like, say, for instance,
for example, as they say,
the coat. Go to Melania's coat.
Sure. There's a very interesting rule in science. Is a rule called Occam's razor that says that the simplest answer is usually the best. Analogous to Melania's coat, there's a rule called Cahnmanns law. So you wonder, why would she do this?
Yeah, why
would you annoy people? And
even more so.
Yeah. So Cahnmanns law says, never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. So it isn't. It is the kindest and least annoying way, at least crazy-making way to think about it. Is it was a mistake. It was a wardrobe malfunction.
But do you think she knew what she was doing, or she just happened
It
to
would be
have
the
the
kind-
coat? You know, sometimes I have a sweater that I always keep in the car, and you know, I just throw it on because sometimes I go to restaurants that are too cold with air conditioning. Sometimes I use it because it's raining, and I keep it in the car. I don't even know what it says. I don't think it says anything. But I'm just wondering if it was one of these jackets that she just had, or she was cold, she threw it on and wasn't thinking.
I am no good at mind reading. I totally stink at mind reading. I say that to apply Cahnmanns law is a way to look at it that makes it so that there's no bad guys. And I don't believe in bad guys.
Okay.
In science, there's no bad people. There's just behavior.
So
What is this behavior? How do you analyze this behavior? Do you want to change this behavior? How could you help? You know, that's all there is to it. There's no good. There ain't no, as what do we say, the grapes of wrath. There ain't no sin. There ain't no virtue. There's just stuff that people do.
Yeah, and then the media is playing it up like it was
Because they got to make money.
so it's all about the money, ratings and money.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's
good.
nothing more.
Capitalism is good.
Because
It's not new.
Because if it said anything different, it would have been. This was the meat that they needed to
Sure.
put on the media to cause all the friction that's going on.
They don't want to cause friction. They just want you to look. They don't care.
No, but the more friction they cause, then they want to turn in the next day. Hey, maybe they're going to find something else and,
If they
and
could,
keep it
if
going.
they could give you 24-hour cat videos and make $1 trillion a day, they would give you cat videos. And people, I mean, it's a business here. They're working here.
So all the stations, it's all about the money and all about the business and all this stuff. Probably in the politics right now, everything that they're doing is really about selling their stations.
Was there some time when it wasn't the case?
It didn't seem as bad. It seemed like most stations were handling the same thing. It was like, I remember when Channel 2, Channel 5, 7, and 9 were basically
Apologists for segregation.
they were like John Cameron Swayze and
Yeah, they were just ignoring. They were ignoring all the Jim
yeah.
Crow stuff. They were ignoring all the wife beating. They were ignoring all the gay
Yeah,
beatings.
so they were all saying the same thing,
Yeah, just
and nobody was
never
causing
mind the
any,
brutality in the
nobody
corner.
was causing any friction. They
There
were
you
just,
go.
They were just,
Leave it to Beaver.
leave it, yeah.
There you go.
They Leave It to Beaver and what was those other shows that?
Donna Reed, Father Knows Best.
Right, right.
Yeah. The Honeymooners.
Yeah.
One of these days, Alice, pow, right in the kisser.
Yeah,
Alice.
that was the first one that had a little bit more spice to it.
There ain't nothing
Yeah.
funnier than beating your wife.
Yeah,
That's funny
right.
stuff. That's humor.
And that was humor in those days, right? That was, and then we think of it now. That was really abuse. If you think about it.
And you don't have to think about it too long.
I know, and oh my God, I didn't even think about that. This is the first time I really thought about that. Everybody used to love it because it was funny.
Sure.
Yeah, but now when you think about it, it's not so funny.
To the moon, Alice.
Yes, and the other one that All in the Family, and that was a lot of racist bias in
Oh yeah,
that
but
one.
the people were making fun of that though.
Yeah.
That wasn't like the idea was that he's a goof for being
Yeah.
a racist.
Yeah, I mean that was. I
Yep.
mean they were making fun of him.
Yep.
But anyway, we have just a few minutes left, and we both You wanted to look at happy endings. The use of science can give you happy endings.
Science and comedy are both. The great thing in common is that they are both ways of looking at life that makes happy endings seem inevitable.
And that's really good because I want to invite you back. You're a great guest, and I'm sure we only have a half hour on the show, and I could see.
We could go on
go on,
forever
yes,
and
yes.
ever.
The credits are going down, and I want to thank you very much again to my friend here, Aaron Freeman, who is
Artist in residence.
Artist in residence,
For the Chicago Council on Science and Technology.
comedian,
Host of Brain Buddies, Chicago Brain Buddies.
And the most excitable person I know.
There you
with
go.
that. And I enjoy listening to all your commentaries and your Facebook I listen to in the morning. I see that wonderful smile that comes on. At least when I see that smile, I think of it as really something. So I want to again thank you for being on the show. I enjoyed it very much. And
Bye.
again, come back and see us.
All right.